Okay everyone, so I'm going to show you how to install Webots, Python, and Visual Studio Code, and then be able to use them together to write programs for Webots using Python. So what we're going to do, the first thing you're going to do is go to the Webots website, which is just cyberbotics.com, and you can see right away the download link. I'm going to be doing everything in Windows, so if you follow this link for the Windows installer, that's what I'll be using. I can't speak to using it on Mac or in Linux, but I'm willing to help if you guys or if anyone's trying to do that. So you're going to download that. That will be a pretty big setup file. It'll take a little while to download, not too long. The other thing you'll need is to download Visual Studio Code. So again, for Windows, you can just click this link, go into code.visualstudio.com, and you'll need Python as well. So if you go to python.org downloads, you can download 3.9.1. Again, everything I'm showing you is on Windows, but you can find all the links to other operating systems. So I've already downloaded those files, and you can see in my downloads folder, so the Webots file, Python, and Visual Studio Code. So those setup files are ready to go. First thing I'll do is install Webots. So if you just double click that, I'm going to install for all users. That's what I recommend. So click that. It'll take a couple seconds. So we're going to click yes. I won't allow you to do that. You can change where it goes. I leave everything typically in program files. Click next to these menus and click install. It's going to take a little while since it's such a big file to extract those files and get everything installed. Alright, so this is now finished. You could just unclick this if you don't want to actually launch Webots, but I'm going to do that anyway, so we're going to launch it, hit finish. It's going to start up Webots now. When you do this the first time, so I had previously installed it and then uninstalled it, and I think it held on to some preference files. When you first start up Webots, you I think see a splash screen asking you about what theme you want. So this is the dark theme, but you can choose the regular white or light theme if you want like a black on a white background type of look. So, and this also is showing a file that I already started for testing things out. But you would have started with, I think, nothing. So what we'll do is we're going to go over, if you check out documentation and you go to user guide in the Webots website, programming language setup using Python, it points you to this example. If you go on a Windows installation, it says that you can check this example right here. So if we go File and Open World, and you go to the Webots directory, so we put it in Program Files. Whoops. Webots. You go under Projects, Languages, Python, Worlds. There's this example. So what happens when you open a world is it will start up simulation, but in this sense, in this case, it didn't actually run the controller file. Why? Well, because we don't have Python installed. So you can see down here these error messages that are popping up because of that. It's basically, it's not recognizing Python, which we expect because we didn't install that yet. So what we'll do is we'll shut down Webots and we'll start with installing Python as the next step. So we'll double click on the installation file. Now don't be too quick here. The first thing you want to do is add Python 3.9 to path and go to custom installation. Basically, if you do the install now, it's going to install everything sort of related to your particular account you're signed into on the computer, but we want it to be kind of recognized across the entire computer, and it's something to do with the path that I've noticed. So basically go to customize, leave all this checked, click next, click on install for all users, and it should then also click precompile standard library. You can leave these two unchecked here. You can put it any where you want, but I prefer to put it in program files / Python 3.9 that it should choose on its own, and then click install. So you'll get this message, yes, we do want to install it. This might take a little faster, might be a little slower, depending on your computer. And what we're going to do is we're going to check the installation by using the command prompt. So once this is finished, okay, so I'm not going to bother clicking on this disable path length limit. You can if you want. It basically lets you use really long paths, but I don't think we have to worry about that. So hit close, and then you're going to open the command prompt. You can do this by going to your start menu and starting to type command. You see command prompt pop up. And then what you want to do is you want to type Python -- version. And if you see Python 3.9.1 pop up, then everything worked okay. If not, try just going to add remove programs in the start menu and uninstall Python and just try to follow those instructions. You probably missed something, otherwise let me know if you're having problems. So that looks okay. Let's close that down. So now we'll open up Webots again. and it should by default open up the last world we had, and you can see it starts right away. So it's running the simulation, and because we now have Python installed, it has no problem starting up that controller. So this tells us that Python's installed and it's recognized by Webots. And at this point, if you wanted, you could use the text editor you see here to edit your code. But next, I'll show you how to get Visual Studio Code installed, because this text editor won't really help you with syntax errors and things like that. So we'll shut down Webots, and we'll go and install Visual Studio. But what I have to do, and you might find you have a similar problem, is based on this installer, it's kind of expecting me to install it just for my machine, my user, and I had some kind of error when I tried that. So I right-click on that, right-click and choose Run as Administrator. Then it says, do you want to change things in your computer? Yes, I want to install this. You get this little error message about it's not meant to be used on an administrator, blah, 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 but I just ignore this. I click, yeah, sure, continue. Okay. So you've got a user agreement, so you can scan through this and read it if you want. Accept the agreement. I don't like where it wants to put it. This user's app data, local stuff, so I want to put it in my program files. It's really up to you where you want it to go, but I find it impossible to find programs when I'm looking for them later, unless they're in program files. So that's what I'm choosing. Click next. Start menu folder, sure. I'm not going to bother the desktop icon. I also don't want to worry about these things here. You can click them if you want. Basically, it just allows you to open files specifically with VS Code. Register the code as an editor for support file types. I'm not going to bother with that as well. But you do want to make sure add to path is clicked. So make sure that's clicked. Hit next, hit install, and it will go through the installation process. So it might take longer on your machine. I can't recall when I first tried it if it has to download temporary files. But anyways, so we'll go launch Visual Studio Code. We'll leave that clicked. We'll click finish. So it should start VS Code. Now there's some stuff already open here because of me playing around preparing for this video. And it's actually, I've uninstalled this, but it's actually held on to some of the configuration stuff. So what you'll notice is down here for me, it says Python 3.9.1, 64-bit, whereas for you, you should see basically nothing down there. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to this button here for extensions. And in there, you want to type Python, and you'll see this one here. And you're going to want to make sure you install this Python. So you'll see an install. So you'll click that, install it, and after that, you want to hit Control-Shift-P, and you're going to type in Python select interpreter. So when you'll see that pop up, you'll click on it. And I have previous versions of Python installed on this computer, but you probably won't see these. So you want to make sure you go down and choose Python 3.9.1. And when you do that, then you should now see down here this Python 3.9.1 64-bit. You'll see this message pop up at some point. I'm not entirely sure if it popped up because I already had a file open for Python that I was editing. But when you see this pop up, linter pylint is not installed, it's a good idea to install that. So you can go install, and basically that's going to give you access to the sort of like debugging messages and highlights and things like that to help you when you're writing code. Okay, so once you get back down here to this PS thing, you know that's finished. Okay, so I'm just going to close this extension thing. I'm going to go back here to the little folders to explore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we have things set up for Webots in terms of folders. So what I typically have on any computer I have is on my C drive I create a Brian folder where I put stuff. You can use your documents and your downloads folders, but I tend to like it to be a little more predictable directly from the C drive. Anyways, so wherever you want to do this, you're going to create a workspace. So what I've done is I've already created a folder called Webots_workspace. And inside that workspace, you're going to need a couple folders. You'll see them, instructions for this are inside some of the labs, or I think they're inside all the labs I've written so far. And you're going to go new folder. You're going to create one called Worlds. You're going to create one called Controllers. You're also going to want at some point, I think even the first lab you're going to want to do this, you're going to have one called Protos. That's where we'll put your custom robot files. Now inside your controllers folder, that's where you're actually going to have the controllers, which is each controller is basically one piece of code written in whatever language you're choosing, whether it's MATLAB or Python or something else. So inside the controllers folder, you're going to have each controller have its own folder inside there. I've already created one for testing out Python called py_test. And inside the controller folder, you're going to have the controller file, which has the same name as that folder. So in this case, pytest, and then .py because it's a Python file. So what I've done already is I've created a new file to do that. And if you go down to programming fundamentals, there's a tutorials. No, it's programming fundamentals. Basically, if you go to programming fundamentals, controller programming, the first thing that shows you is a hello world example. So what I did is I just went and I copied the Python version of that. So you can click on the different tabs to see in different languages what this example looks like. So for Python, I basically highlighted that, Control C, copy, and I went into Visual Studio. You can go in your file and then paste that in there, and you can go save as. And what I did, you'll notice that it just takes some text and puts .text, but you have to have it as .py. It has to be a .py file. And so I did that and saved it as pytest.py. So I've already done that. Oops. Already done that. And it's going to ask me if I want to replace it. Sure, it doesn't really matter because it's the same thing. Now you notice that in Visual Studio, you can hit this little play button to run your code. And they'll try to run it down here in the terminal, but it won't really work for Webots code on its own because Webots has a library called controller that it recognizes, but that's not really recognized by Python by default. It's only recognized when you're running Webots. So what we'll do is we'll open up Webots. Now, of course, let's open up the last file we ran. So we're going to go and we're going to just start a new one. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the plus button here. It's taking a few seconds. So you're going to go here, Protonodes Webots projects. We're going to add object, backgrounds, textured background. And you can go and you can expand this, go to texture, you can change that to something else if you want. We're going to add something else. So go to plus, Protonodes, objects, we're going to add a simple little floor. All we want to do is test this little hello world program. But we do need a robot as well to do that because we need a controller somehow in the program, and only the robots have access to having controllers. You'll notice too when I added the floor, you get this white line. That's actually the floor. You just don't see it because we're sort of the camera's inside it. So if you right click and drag, you can move the camera around. If you left click and drag, you'll rotate the camera around. So whenever I start up a new world, I always sort of add a floor and right click and go up just to make sure I can see things. Okay. Um, recall too, I mentioned at some point that if you play the simulation, so we've added stuff. If we play the simulation and then reset it, it'll delete things that we added but didn't save. So just be careful of that. So I'll just add a robot. I'm gonna go to Photo Nodes, Robots. I'm gonna add in ClearPath a moose robot. Okay, so there's our robot. Now I'm gonna save that. So hit the save button. And what you want to do is you want to go back to your workspace. So I have Brian, Webots workspace, and I want to go into worlds. And I had already done this, so I'm going to save over the file I already created. I just called it pytest hello world.wbt. Yeah, that's fine. I'll replace it. And what you're going to do to add your controller is you expand the robot you added, go to controller, go to select. And you'll see your controller. We called it pytest. So hit OK. You won't see your controller in here until after you've already saved the file inside your workspace worlds folder. So just keep that in mind. So now if we run it, you can see nothing really happens. The robot is just spitting out on the screen hello world over and over and over. Since that's all the code is meant to do. So like I said, you can edit your code inside the text editor here. So for example, if you right click on this, I think that allows me to do that. So you could always just open it here, open existing text file. So you go to controllers, pytest, just reset the simulation. So you can see here's the code we wrote. And if I want to check it at that, so like hello RB843 world, and save it. So Control S or hit the little save icon. So now if I run it, you see that new text. And of course, you could edit things in here if you want, but you won't really get access to the little debugging features to help you help you catch syntax errors and things like that. So I'll just pause, reset. Whereas in here, you would see those pop up. Like for example, it's underlying from here because it doesn't see controller. So like I mentioned, controller is sort of exclusive inside Webots. If I try adding a semicolon there, it should sort of give me a warning about that. And it's not really popping up, but it would typically give you a warning saying that you don't need that semicolon, things like that. So it's helpful to use VS Code, but you don't necessarily need it. So that should be everything you need to download and set up the Webots program, install Python, install VS Code, and get it up and running. And then reach out, let me know if you're having problems following these instructions. Also, please make a post in the Discord discussion forum if it's working for you, so that I know and so other people can see that at least some of us are having success getting this started up. All right. Cheers, guys.